This episode is brought to you by Progressive.
Are you driving your car or doing the laundry right now? Podcasts go best when they're bundled with another activity, like Progressive home and auto policies. They're best when bundled too.
Having these two policies together makes insurance easier and could help you save. Customers who save by switching their home and car insurance to Progressive save over $775 on average.
Quote a home and car bundle today at Progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $779 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2022 and May 2023. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Welcome to the Intrazone, a show about the SharePoint Intelligent Intranet. I'm your host, Mark Cashman. Each week, I'm joined by a special co-host from within the Microsoft SharePoint team. Today, my co-host is Bill Baer. Bill Baer and I sit literally inches away, but oftentimes aren't in the same room because we certainly focus on different parts of SharePoint. I'm cloud, he's on-prem, but Bill is also a senior product manager for SharePoint and Office 365, and you know him as Mr. On-prem, but he's so much more.
Hey, thanks, Mark. It's great to be back on the podcast. A lot has actually happened since the SharePoint conference back in May. And today in our guest segment, we're going to be talking to Kippi Lundgren as well from the Project Server team.
So this episode is going to be pretty chock full of everything on-prem. And a quick overview of what we'll be talking about. The topic of this week is certainly the journey from on-prem and beyond, all things SharePoint Server, with a big focus on something you might be working on rolling out here pretty soon, SharePoint Server 2019. Since we've got Kippi on board, we're going to talk with her about Microsoft Project Server and how that fits into the world of SharePoint and how it fits into its own world. We'll also have an app of the week that's pretty appropriate, obviously, for people thinking about their journey. So we've got a ton to talk about in terms of online, on-premises, hybrid, project, SharePoint. Let's go.
Let's do it.
So we usually have a segment where we jump right into the news, but really the news today, we're going to blend it with the topic of the week because the topic of the week this week is SharePoint Server 2019. But I'm going to let you break the news that's most pertinent to SharePoint Server 2019. The news today is?
It's available for download in preview.
Nice. So public preview, live and ready for people to play with. Today being July 24th, 2018. Let the games begin. What do you say?
Absolutely. We're looking forward to people's feedback to see what they think of this new server release. It's been a long time coming. It doesn't seem very long when you think back to 2016, but it has been a sprint to get us to this point. We want people to download it, experiment with us, let us know what they think, try out some of the new features.
Very exciting. So I think two roads indeed diverge at one time in a yellow wood, but for SharePoint, two codes converged into a single base. So with that amazing Robert Frost setup, Bill, can you give us a quick history of SharePoint Server as far back as you want to take us and take us all the way up to now, this journey that's led to SharePoint Server 2019 public beta?
Well, let me take you on a Chaucer-like journey. That's going to take a little bit of time for us to walk through, but SharePoint's been around for over 15 years now. Our first version of SharePoint was the culmination of the web storage system provided by Exchange and the digital dashboard resource kit. And an interesting fact about that early generation of SharePoint is the first version of web parts were actually called nuggets.
Nuggets.
Before they were renamed web parts.
Nice.
So that's a nugget for you
and was
to
that
take
a
along with you.
chicken nugget or just a plain code-based nugget?
Just a plain square nugget. And when we converged those two different products, we created our first version of STS or SharePoint Team. And then we ended up with a portal server in 2001, really focused on intranet portals and collaboration. 2003 rolled around, and personalization was really what people wanted in 2003. So we added My Sites. We didn't call them My Sites. They were actually called Personal Sites in 2003. 2007, Enterprise Content Management was really big. We took a big leap and added new capabilities in 2007 to support enterprise content management, carried along portals and collaboration, and that's when the personal site also became the My Site. In 2010, we really saw an opportunity to create a platform, so we introduced Sandbox Solutions, particularly at that time as we invested more and more in the cloud. We also brought fast search into the product or into our fold with SharePoint 2010. As we moved into 2013, we added enterprise search and social capabilities, again, built on the foundation of fast. For that former piece, 2016 was really an infrastructure-focused release, and that's kind of where we converged the code bases. For so long, we were building two different products that shared the same name. One that landed in the cloud as either BPOS or Office 365, one that landed on premises, which had a moniker that followed it, 2013, 16. And here we are today with 2019. And 2019 is a great refresh, particularly for those top-of-the-stack features, those end-user features that people have been requesting.
So we're definitely going to dive into all of those details. And certainly with that journey, it's a great history. I think the amazing part is there are a lot of people that have been on that part of that journey. Obviously, people that may refer to a little bit later in the show, Jeff Teeper, who has been referred to as the father of SharePoint, or if jokingly, I think one time he was referred to as the grandfather of SharePoint, but we won't say that again. We won't mention who said that, right? But you've been on this journey for quite some time. I think just a little nugget, or maybe we can call it a web part of your history. What's Bill Baer's journey? Just if you're in your synopsis, when did you start with SharePoint? And obviously, we'll get a sense of where you are today.
So I started with SharePoint prior to our shipping of Portal Server 2003. And at Microsoft, my focus was, ironically, bringing SharePoint to the cloud through Microsoft Managed Services in late 2004 and early 2005, which of course evolved into BPOS, which today we know as Office 365. So my first job with SharePoint was to bring it to the cloud and design the infrastructure to support its scaling in the cloud. So here we are today with Office 365. And despite being Mr. On-Premises, I couldn't be happier to see the work that I started on 15 years ago actually, coming together the way it has.
Well, your journey and SharePoint's journey to the cloud, I think, has made all the difference as we went from a diverged code base to a now converged experience. Obviously, a lot to talk about in that context. So let's talk a little bit about the team perspective. The people that are actually building SharePoint Server, how they built it in the past is a little bit different. Let's focus a little bit more on how they're building it today. Just a behind-the-scenes look at how does the team actually decide what goes into SharePoint Server. In the context of Server 2019, I think is most timely. How does the team think about what goes in the box of SharePoint Server?
So outside of rolling dice on most occasions, one of the things...
And you probably use loaded dice,
right,
don't you?
Exactly. So really what we look at is more or less opportunity. We look to the cloud to see what capabilities have really reached the largest percentage of our user base, which features are resonating, which ones are actually ready to be brought back to on-premises, meaning that they are code complete inside of Office 365. So we look at those features first. We could call those the low-hanging fruit. And then we start to look beyond those features and see, well, what else can we bring? And the questions we ask ourselves are, can we bring it to on-premises as a wholesale proposition? If the answer to that question is no, that's when we look to hybrid. So hybrid becomes plan B. Can we enable it through hybrid? And then if we can't enable it through hybrid, then it becomes a cloud-only feature. Great examples of which is in 2013 when we started to introduce new hybrid search experiences. One of the things that we looked at was we want people to be able to take advantage of the Office Graph and Delve at the time. And we want to enable our on-premises customers to be able to experience what machine learning and contextual search is all about. Now, obviously, we can't bring all of the algorithms and all of the capability behind the Office Graph directly to on-premises, and that's one of those areas where we said, but we can through hybrid. So hybrid becomes that middle layer that we can always look at for those features we can't natively put in the box. So really what we decide to put in the box are those things that we can actually just bring in there.
So I think part of what you and I have either shared or sometimes contrasted is, I've mostly focused on the cloud ever since I took the role, about almost 10 years ago now. And you have primarily focused on premises. And again, how we're talking about how those have converged mostly. It used to be, what are the gaps between on-premises that aren't in online? And some of that is now shifted. What is in online that's maybe not yet to on-premises?
Right.
And obviously with hybrid being a nice gap filler, but it really is a consistent journey. It may just be a year or two behind or a year or two ahead, depending on how you look at it. But when you think of what is SharePoint, the answer, at least what I would give and what you would give, is much more similar than you cut to 5 or 10 years ago when it was a very different, boy, now are you talking in the cloud or on premises? That answer is much different. Today, it's really a common answer. And I even think it boils down to a lot of common documentation, which is maybe a silly way to put it. But if you get a question when somebody's talking about SharePoint server on premises, the answer may be a link to an article that I would also reference if somebody's asking that same question, but they happen to be deployed in the cloud. So very interesting journey, and certainly I think it's always interesting to hear it from our side of it. The flip side is, though, what is the customer journey? Customers sometimes describe their use of SharePoint as a journey. Obviously, if they've been with us for a while, we super appreciate it. We try to make it super easy for them to upgrade on premises or move to the cloud. But let's dive a little bit more into the hybrid side of SharePoint Server. You just talked a little bit about how we started adding that in the last couple of releases. How does that encourage or increase the capabilities of that customer journey with SharePoint?
Yeah, I would say, firstly, on-premises provides both choice and flexibility, and that's the power of on-premises. It gives those customers who may not be able to take advantage of the cloud fully an opportunity to still have SharePoint as part of their core collaboration solution. In addition to that, if they're looking towards the cloud as their potential feature, it's a common platform that they're moving from and moving to. So users, IT, everybody's already familiar with how the platform works. So the shift isn't as great as opposed to moving from something that's not SharePoint to something that is SharePoint. So it really provides that consistency as they move from on-premises to the cloud. The other thing it brings to our customers on-premises via hybrid is the opportunity to take advantage of the cloud on their own terms. So we used to look at hybrid as more of a mechanism to bring on-premises customers to the cloud, and now it's more of a mechanism to bring the cloud back to our on-premises customers. So great examples of which are enterprise or hybrid search is a great example of bringing the cloud back to our customers. It doesn't require them to take all of their content, package it up, and move it to Office 365. They can keep the content that needs to remain on premises, but still leverage the search capabilities that Office 365 has to offer. Very similarly, we do that in a number of places with OneDrive for Business is another great example. So it's selective redirection. It's finding that right set of users that you want to bring to the cloud. You can redirect them to Office 365 to consume OneDrive, and you can still have users on premises that use OneDrive on premises. But at the end of the day, they navigate to it the same way. They're using the same tool sets. So it's a very familiar experience. One of the interesting metrics that we like to talk about is from an adoption perspective, our hybrid users are 5 times more likely to use the capabilities in Office 365 than a non-hybrid customer.
And I think as part of that journey, they start to think in terms of what used to be separate farms that they would have to deploy either per scale or per, focus of how people are coming into SharePoint. And now those farms are just meaning maybe one farm is on-prem and one farm is in the cloud. Happens to be in the cloud where they've got some new capabilities. But it's also just load balancing, scaling, deployment choices, like you said. Instead of all my farms within my firewall, now just think in terms of the broader breadth of combining on-premises and online. And it's no different. You're still just using and accessing SharePoint. And for the most part, to an end user, you're having a consistent experience from one site to the other, leveraging files, searching files, and obviously just working with content and basically connecting and collaborating with people. When it's in a hybrid mode, it's not a Herculean effort to get there, and it's not a disjointed experience for end users.
Yeah, absolutely. And hybrids become less and less Herculean over the course of the past several releases. In the past, hybrid was largely a command line-based configuration via Windows PowerShell. And over the course of time, what we've been doing is investing more and more in the hybrid picker. So if you're inside of the SharePoint Admin Center, way down on the lower left in the navigation, there's an option that says Configure Hybrid. You install the hybrid picker on one of your servers on premises, and you simply just use your mouse to select the options that you want, click Next 3 or 4 times, and click Finish, and it sets it all up for you.
Yeah, the wizard approach is certainly a huge investment, not only the capabilities behind once you're configured, but to get there. I remember in, I think the 2013 release, when you first started to release some of the hybrid, you and our friend Steve Peshka, who, for those of you who don't know Steve from the days of old, was this amazing architect for SharePoint that really could solve any problem. But it really took you and Steve to prop it up and to band it together with wire and lots of duct tape and just to get the thing moving in those early days. But now, me, barely guy who thinks even as a cloud admin to be able to go in and click, click, click. Yeah, sure, hybrid search is set up. Hybrid taxonomy, let's do that tomorrow. And then it just takes tomorrow, not the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's no longer an infrastructure task as it had been in the past. Because the configuration now is so automated and so simple, it's not something that you would sit down and put together a lengthy and involved infrastructure plan to start thinking about. It's something where you can just click your way through a wizard and be configured that day. Obviously, you still want to do some planning around it. You definitely want to educate end users as to what the experience is going to be, what new capabilities you're going to bring them. But it's less intrusive than it used to be.
So with SharePoint, with hybrid, online, on-premises, the journey is not one that feels blocked. I have to move or I don't move, but to connect and combine. So I think from what I take from what customers say and what I've heard you say and hear as well, is that journey makes it a whole and complete effort, obviously, with having hybrid.
Yeah, it's the quintessential crawl, walk, and run.
Nice.
So, crawl with on-premises and walk with hybrid and run with the cloud.
Excellent. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of what's in SharePoint Server 2019. Essentially, when people start to play with the public preview, what can they expect? You have a blog post that's out since the SharePoint conference, and you also published your presentation that you did at the SharePoint conference that was all about SharePoint Server. So we'll have those in the show notes. But let's get from you, what first were the big ticket items?
Really, the big ticket items, as I mentioned earlier in this podcast, was talking about those top-of-the-stack features, the user experience capabilities, those features that everybody has been wanting as they've seen them roll out inside of SharePoint Online. So to kind of enumerate those relatively quickly is one of the big ticket items is obviously communication sites. Communication sites and many of the new web parts are coming back to SharePoint 2019 from SharePoint Online. And I think that exposes a great opportunity to really shift the way that you communicate inside of your organization on premises. And then in addition to communication sites, what also follows is modern team sites. You get the new site pages, you get the modern web parts, you get the authoring experience that comes along with it. Obviously, the lists and libraries will also be modernized inside of 2019. And then one of my big favorites is actually OneDrive. The OneDrive experience is going to fundamentally change for our customers on premises, meaning that you're no longer relegated to the classic Groove experience of days gone by. You can actually take advantage of the new client.
So Groove.exe going away? Don't need it anymore?
Groove.exe, for our customers that are still in 2016 and 2013, they'll still have to use the Groove client. The next generation sync client has a client-server dependency that we could only fix in 2019. Mm-hmm. The great part about it is not only do you get the new next generation sync client inside of 2019, you also get files on demand along with the new sync client, and you get personal site sync. So you can use the new sync client for personal site sync as well as team site sync. And then the really cool thing is you get push notifications now with the new sync client on premises. So basically, you get immediate notifications when changes are made to content that the sync client has a relationship with, and that both works for cloud and on premises. And then obviously the really big thing is if you're doing hybrid, regardless of where your users are, if they're on-prem, in the cloud, or somewhere in between, they all use the same sync client.
I think that's going to be one of the most amazing things, especially customers who are similar to us. And Microsoft here, we're deployed still in a bit of a hybrid state in some respects, mostly in the cloud. But when it comes to the actual sync client, whether your files are in SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, in Office 365, or as a part of SharePoint Server 2019, whether it's in your personal zone, OneDrive, or in your team sites on SharePoint Server, the culmination of that, including files, if people think in terms of files in Microsoft Teams or files in Outlook from an Office 365 group perspective, not to boil the ocean there, but that will be one sync client to rule them all, especially now when you connect it to on-premises.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of great end-user experiences obviously are coming to SharePoint 2019 to really help people not only just communicate and collaborate better by bringing new features and capabilities, but they're responsive, they're mobile-ready, they look and work great inside of the SharePoint mobile app. A couple of other things that we'll be bringing from the end-user perspective or that top-of-the-stack UX type of opportunity, SharePoint Home.
Hey, SharePoint Home as in the SharePoint Home?
The SharePoint Home, something that you worked long and hard on. So
yeah, I love it.
That's also coming to on-premises. Now, the only exception being that SharePoint Home on-prem falls back to enterprise search to provide activity and notifications, whereas inside of Office 365, it's driven through machine learning. Fortunately, for hybrid scenarios, SharePoint Home also works equally as well.
So if I'm on the SharePoint Home today in Office 365, I see news, I see frequent sites, I see things programmed by my IT department for sites for everybody, and I get suggested or recommended sites. Because you're pivoting from graph to search, and you have all of the new capabilities supported in modern team sites and communication sites, SharePoint Home on premises will have news, yes or no?
Absolutely.
SharePoint Home will have frequent sites?
It will.
Suggested sites?
It will.
Sites for everybody?
It will.
Sounds just like the SharePoint Home I know and love.
Sounds like the SharePoint Home people have come to know and love. Again, it's not as contextually relevant as something that machine learning can provide. So it doesn't have a lot of the inference and things that you would get from our algorithms in the cloud, but enterprise search really provides a powerful experience for those customers on premises. And then if you want to unleash the full potential of SharePoint Home, you connect it via hybrid, and you get both results from on-prem as well as those inside of Office 365. So great experiences there.
Cool. So let's talk about a few things that are maybe below the fold. We'll take our submarine and we'll sink down just a little bit below the surface, maybe a little bit below the surface than what was shared at SharePoint Conference. We'll see. Talk about things that we're doing with Power Apps and Flow, some of the things we're doing for developers, and maybe even some of the hidden IT benefits that are just going to get better.
So I'll channel my inner Jacques Cousteau and join you on your submarine trip. So a couple of the things that are coming for IT professionals that we didn't talk about at the conference itself is Access Services 2013 now supports send email. So that's a great new improvement there. One of my favorite things is IT will actually enjoy this is that self-service site creation via the SharePoint Home now supports alternate access mapping zones, which is a pretty important improvement for IT professionals. It's been one of those that have been long sought after, as well as SMTP server authentication, so no more anonymous relays just for SharePoint. You obviously get the benefits of the new max path improvements, the %% or special character support in files. You do now get fast site creation with SharePoint 2019. It's something that we endeavored to do in SharePoint 2016, but we limited it to OneDrive personal sites only.
And what's the timing on that? I know when we launched that fast site creation in online, we brought it down from maybe 5 to 10 minutes down to 5 to 10 seconds. Are they targeting that same threshold
Yeah,
on
for
premises?
on-premises, we're targeting that same threshold of just being able to create a site in a matter of seconds. But now it spans beyond just the OneDrive personal site in 2019. It actually works on team sites, modern sites only. The new modern site template is STS #3. So for developers and IT professionals that are going to ask that question, that's what the template is.
And a small little hint to anybody listening, STS #3 becomes very important in the near future and in the distant future. But think in terms of sites modernizing, STS #3. Just keep that in your head.
And then communication sites are supported by fast site creation. For entry points, for fast site creation, it has to be either the OneDrive personal site auto-provisioning experience, the Create Site button on SharePoint Home, or via using the new SP Site Windows PowerShell commandlet. And you'll have the same parameter available to you, which is Create from Site Master. But the interesting thing now is we've really extended beyond 2016 to enabling more templates to take advantage of fast site creation. So a ton of exciting improvements for
Now,
2019.
If I was a developer, which I know we've got a lot of people listening who wear a developer hat, what am I excited about if I hear or I'm starting to play with the public preview? What am I excited about with SharePoint Server 2019 as a developer?
So for developers that are going to take advantage of SharePoint 2019, in Feature Pack 2 for SharePoint 2016, just to take a step back, we really emphasize the developer experience or enriching the developer experience in that particular feature pack. So we supported SharePoint Framework Web Parts with 2016 Feature Pack 2. In 2019, SharePoint Framework Web Parts are native to 2019, as well as SharePoint Framework extensions. So now you have both extensions and web parts available to you. And the way that I like to think about it is now you can build once and deploy anywhere. So if you're on that hybrid journey, you can take those same created artifacts, and you can bring them to Office 365 with relative ease.
I like to think of extensions as that song that we learned in grade school. Header, shoulders, knees and footer, knees and footer. Header, shoulders, knees and footer, knee and footer. So header, footer, maybe not shoulders just yet.
Right. But
good way to
footer?
think about it. Do you think that's going to catch on, that song?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. We should record it and make an album.
I think it's amazing just to see what people are doing with the header and footer in online and to see that come to on-premises. I think it gives a lot of people more of what they want to control within the surface area of things that they maybe don't want to have to control.
It's definitely a great opportunity. If you're looking towards the cloud one day or you just want to build great client-side solutions, then we've got you answered inside of 2019. And also with the introduction of modern sites, you get more and more capability out of the framework and your ability to really integrate it well and cleanly into sites and pages. And then one last thing for the IT professionals. One of the other things, too, is the distributed cache. It now uses background garbage collection by default. So it sounds like a relatively benign... Sounds like it's pretty benign.
Thursday morning already? I forgot to put the trash out.
I forgot to put my cans out. But now you don't have to worry about it because it happens by default in the background.
Nice. So let's switch over to now people understand a little bit about what comes in the server box, SharePoint Server 2019. Starting today on through to when we generally make it available beyond public preview, what should people do? What are actually scenarios and things they should try when they install and try out SharePoint Server 2019? And I think, like a good 80s rap song, let's break it down by role. And I can maybe give you a beat in the backdrop. Let's start with end users. Break it down. No, let's first start with end users, maybe no beat in the background.
I'm sorry, I was just getting out my cardboard and my parachute pants.
Ooh, very nice. So if I'm an end user and my IT department was nice enough to prop up and pilot maybe the public preview, what should I try?
For end users, modern. Take advantage of modern sites. We'd love to hear what you're doing with them, how much they've improved performance, how much they've improved people's ability to just use SharePoint sites to share and create documents. So use modern sites. Use news. We definitely want to see how you can use news. And when I say use news, that also implies use the mobile app. We want you to take advantage of the SharePoint mobile app as well as SharePoint News to be able to communicate those big ticket items across your organization. We want to hear how that's working out on premises. We've got a great idea of how it is inside of Office 365. Communication sites are obviously one of the things we want to see people use. But we also want to see end users using the hero web part as well on premises in creative ways. Create compelling intranets just using a lot of the out-of-box capabilities. And then for the developers, you really supplement those experiences with the investments we've made in framework and extensions for on-premises. For IT, obviously we want you to deploy it. That'd be great.
Maybe it starts with IT.
Yeah, it starts with get it deployed.
Yep.
Upgrade, we want you to give us your upgrade experiences. Let us know what's working well. Let us know what's not working well. One of the things about upgrade is if you have a classic site, it upgrades as a classic site. It remains classic. The lists and libraries, however, will become modern, but there will be a fallback to classic as well. So if you have dependencies on classic, you can always fall back. Net new created sites via the UI entry points will all be modern. You can still create a classic site using the Windows PowerShell commandlets, but really what we want you to do for end users, use modern sites, use news, use communication sites, use the new web parts, use lists and libraries. Let us know what you think. For IT professionals, it's really get it deployed, perform upgrades, let us know how that works. Let us know how the min role capabilities are working since we've natively baked them in since Feature Pack 2 when we started to improve them, or Feature Pack 1, where we started to improve those. So we definitely want to see some compelling use cases or how that experience has been. Developers, again, supplementing, augmenting, creating new experiences via the framework components that we provided in the product. And also for end users, for those hybrid connected customers, we really want to know how you're using Power Apps and Flow with 2019, since they become part of your list library experience.
Can people try out some of the hybrid experiences in the public preview?
Yeah, they can, and it's easier than ever with 2019. So 2019 has hybrid as a runtime experience. If you think about what that means is with 2016 and earlier versions, you'd set up your SharePoint environment, and then a year down the road, someone would want to do hybrid because you're migrating to SharePoint Online, and hybrid becomes that connective tissue between the two. So that way there's not as many context switches for users. You can control who goes where. But it was an after-the-fact setup. In many cases, maybe your farm wasn't optimally configured for hybrid. Now when you install 2019, you're going to get a nice little prompt that says, unleash the full potential of SharePoint by going hybrid. You just accept that, and it configures your farm from day one for hybrid. And then once you have hybrid, not only can you take advantage of all the awesome stuff that we've done in the past, but you can take advantage of some of the new cool business process management type capabilities, Power Apps and Flow.
Love it. So as we wrap up this segment of the podcast, it leaves me with just one question, and only you can answer this. Is on-premises dead?
I just wanted people to think I might have died. So fortunately, the answer to that is no, on-premises isn't dead. So we got the same question in 2013. We subsequently shipped 2016. Here we are shipping 2019, at least the preview of 2019. So we've got a great future ahead of us, starting with 2019 and taking that journey forward. One of the things at the converged code base that we talked about very early in this show, it provides a great opportunity for us to continue to invest in on-premises because it's no longer walking down two separate paths and trying to munge them get together into SharePoint. We're no longer at that point to where we had to decide, is the cloud share and is on-prem point? And trying to figure out, how we can break SharePoint into two different things and walking down those two separate roads. That fork in the road has converged. And we have this one product now we can ship at any given point in time, 2019 being the latest generation of that. So SharePoint is alive, well, and happy. So once we get beyond 2019, I'm sure we'll get asked again. And I won't pause as long as I did.
No, the pause was perfect timing. So definitely alive and kicking, great heartbeat and momentum coming with SharePoint Server 2019, and absolutely can't wait for people to try it out. Let us know what you think. We've got one great resource we'll put in the show notes where Bill was joined with Brian Alderman from MindSharp talking about SharePoint Server 2019, what you can expect. And some of the information will be the same, but the best thing about the webinar is you actually get to see SharePoint Server 2019 in action because you guys did a ton of demos. So we'll put a link to that webinar in the show notes. We also wanted to transition before we talk about the app of the week to hear a clip from the SharePoint conference keynote. Jeff Teeper, our corporate vice president in all things SharePoint, OneDrive, and Office. And he talked a little bit in the keynote about SharePoint Server 2019. So before we move on to the app of the week, let's hear from Jeff.
We've spent most of the time this morning on the cloud. As Seth said, 70% of our customers are there. It's grown about 10% year over year. But I want to reassure everybody that we are committed to the on-premises release. We know a lot of organizations need it. We'll make the case to go to the cloud, but it's your choice. And whether it's in a hybrid configuration or standalone, we will support you. SharePoint at this point has been pretty re-architected to take advantage of cloud services from the rest of Microsoft. And so what we did is last calendar year, we started going in and refactoring the code to bring a subset of it to the on-premises product and deliver what we think is a really great high-quality experience release. And the three things I'll highlight there are OneDrive files on demand with the new sync client coming to on-premises. Two is the modern team site experience. While we don't connect Office 365 groups because there's not Office 365 groups on premises, the new team site experience is there. The new communication sites, including SharePoint Home, News, and much more, the advanced layouts, easy page editing, SharePoint framework customization, also coming. So I think between these three things, and there's more as well, big noticeable leap in the user experience, as well a lot of work we've done to set up and simplify the server, including connecting to the cloud. So we will, as we promised Ignite, ship SharePoint Server 2019 in calendar 2018. We just did the final fork for the beta a few weeks ago. We have a lot of stabilization and testing to do before we get it out there this summer, but we are very, very excited and committed to the on-premises release.
Okay, always great to hear everything from Jeff, and specifically to hear his enthusiasm and support for SharePoint Server 2019 and echoing essentially what we last talked about you with just a couple minutes ago. The app of the week this week is the SharePoint migration tool, of which you also manage.
Yay!
So tell us a little bit about it. We brought that to market, and now we've iterated on it even since we've released it with a couple of additional updates. But in a nutshell, what is it?
So the SharePoint migration tool is a simple self-service migration tool that we put together here at Microsoft to enable our customers who are looking to take advantage of SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, or destinations inside of Office 365 in a really seamless and simple way. So through the SharePoint migration tool, you can migrate your on-premises sites, whether those are team sites or OneDrive for Business, to Office 365, to both OneDrive as well as SharePoint Online team sites. It enables you to do document libraries, so you can move your document libraries from point A to point B. You can also move your lists and list structure from point A to point B. That was an improvement that we introduced into the migration tool after document library support. Most recently, we also added self-site creation to it, so if the destination doesn't exist, it'll create that site for you and then move the document libraries as well as the lists from the source site to the newly created destination site. And just a couple of weeks ago, we also added automation support. We recognize it's summer, people have better things to do than sit inside and press a button to migrate. It now has some new PowerShell commandlets, so you can create a script, you can automate that migration, you can sit out on the porch, act like you're working, take your phone calls, walk back in, check on your migration, maybe go get dinner and come back. So it no longer requires you to just sit in front of it.
So there is some physics and reality of moving content up into SharePoint Online as it would be moving content from A to B, whatever the source and destination are, but certainly automating it and making it easier and giving additional capabilities. So the tool's been evolving. How do you think in terms of the tool that we offer and still the relevancy of third-party tools that do a lot more? They've been around for a number of years, and there's a place for both. How would you think in terms of our migration tool and those that our third-party migration partners offer?
Yeah, our partners absolutely enrich everything that we can do from a migration perspective natively. So if you come back to the way I described the migration tool, it's really a self-service migration tool, whereas our partners can provide services that come along with their migration scenarios. Obviously, the breadth that they have is greater than what the SharePoint migration tool provides, so they can really manage those specialized templates. They can manage customized sites. They also have services components to them to where they can really sit down and white glove your migration to Office 365. In addition to that, on the front end and the back end, they have a number of different migration capabilities from validation, pre-migration experiences, all the way through, driving usage and adoption. So if you think about what the SharePoint migration tool represents is really those simple scenarios, those vanilla scenarios that you can bring into Office 365. So getting documents from point A to point B, getting lists from point A to point B in a self-service manner. And then our partners really can do the heavy lifting of taking those customized sites and managing the complexity that we know comes with SharePoint on-premises and helping those customers get wholly to Office 365.
Yeah, I think the agnostic approach to what tool works best for obviously your scenario, or maybe you start with one and then move to the other for things that are less complex to more complex. But I think the agnostic part is you have to have a good team of people that are willing to look at what do you have, where are you trying to go, when do you need to get there, how much do you actually want to take with you, because sometimes the move to the cloud is also a great time to clean house.
And the overhead compartments are getting smaller and smaller.
They really are. You're going to have to check your baggage. So think about in terms of checking your baggage or maybe putting it into some cold storage. We certainly accept and don't really think in terms of how much content do you have. But it's more of, as your end users are starting to transition to the cloud, how much content do you want them to find? I think that's an important question, because if they're finding outdated content, incorrect content, or just content that just shouldn't be used anymore, it's a great opportunity, and that's just really more around the strategy and planning, and then the tool is just about execution. So great app of the week. I think it's a wonderful tool, certainly wonderful tools from our third parties, but we'll have a link in the show notes about how to learn more about the SharePoint migration tool and obviously how to get it and then use it.
And it's free.
And it's free. That's amazing. So let's take a moment and talk to Kippi Lundgren. Kippi is a senior product manager for Project Server, and I'll let you kind of reveal the fun reason why we're actually having Kippi on the show. Not only is Kippi a wonderful product manager, but why is it that Project and SharePoint are so connected at the hip?
Yeah, first, it's great to have Kippi here to talk about the experiences that Project Server 2019 will bring to our customers on premises. For this particular episode, the reason we're focusing right now on Project Server is because it's a native part of SharePoint 2019. So in SharePoint Server 2016, when we converged code bases, We also acquired Project Server and natively brought it into the fold. So we've basically become the Borg inside of the Office Servers product. So we brought Project Server 2019 into it. So Project Server 2019 becomes 2 of 2. And then in 2019, we've again brought Project Server natively into the product. It's licensed separately, but if you're using both Project and SharePoint, you don't have to install 2 different things and then try to bind them together. We've done all that work for you. All you have to do is just unlock it with your license, and then you can start taking advantage of some of the great experiences that Kippi will provide.
All right, so let's dive in and chat a little bit with Kippi. Got some questions, and we'll learn a little bit more about Project Server. Welcome. Kippi is a senior product manager for Project Server. Bill made kind of a fun announcement at the earlier part of the episode, and he was talking about that today, July 24th, is the public preview of SharePoint Server 2019. Any announcements you want to make today?
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Happy to be here. We are also doing a public preview of Project Server 2019 as well. We are in tandem with SharePoint.
What a coincidence.
Yay!
Amazing. And that's exactly why Bill and I wanted to have you on today.
Well,
It's a really exciting time, obviously, for both products. Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here.
Sure. So I've actually joined Microsoft a couple months ago. So I'm new to the project world. I have worked on other Microsoft products, but this is my first foray into the Office world.
So your first project in Microsoft is Project Server.
Right.
It's a pretty good first project.
Exactly.
I love it.
It's all about project, right?
It is all about project.
Sure. But I'm really excited to be on the project team. The opportunity to work with customers to help them manage their business transformation more effectively with a tool like Project. It's really cool to be here. So
Well,
thank you.
I'm glad that you're liking it a couple months in. Maybe we'll check back in with you a year or two later and see if you're like, Project is crazy. But I think Project is great. I've actually been, not physically me using it as the project manager, but certainly been a part of teams that have used Project and invited into many projects so that I can see what are my tasks and hopefully checking off those tasks and looking that maybe not getting assigning new tasks.
Right.
But here at Microsoft, we get assigned lots of tasks. So
Yes.
I love the world of task management. I'm very thankful for a good project manager in terms of the world of just keeping on task. So moving on beyond who you are, let's dive into a little bit about Project Server. What is Project Server? And I think we'll start maybe for people who are interested, the history of Project Server, both desktop and server, that leads from the early days up until about now.
Project as a desktop application has been around since the mid-1980s. And the first version that rolled out on Windows, the Windows operating system, was in 1990. So the desktop, it's just a rich, a very rich featured experience. Project Server came out in the early aughts, in the early 2000s. And, we've been taking in feedback from customers, and we've just kept building it to where it's now a very comprehensive project and portfolio management solution. In 2010, we integrated with SharePoint, and we've been with SharePoint ever since. So
it's a good train to ride, right?
Exactly. It's a great train to ride. But with Project Server, what it really does is it allows customers to have a single view across all the initiatives so that customers can monitor or can ensure that they're driving the right business value. And, this is really important today because a lot of companies are going through the digital transformation. And so having that single source of truth to see across all, all the different initiatives, it really can help with driving better decisions and driving better results.
So as people are doing maybe what they originally started out doing, but they're doing a lot more of it, the projects obviously are getting bigger, the client and the server are getting more robust, and as it's being more integrated into the overall collaborative suite, and even some of the, the communication out, here's how our project is doing, to be able to get a lens into that. Where things are going for a lot of the company, and certainly if you think about it from a SharePoint perspective, is to the cloud and moving not just off the desktop, because we certainly didn't have that desktop component, but as we move from server to cloud, how does Project move from server to cloud? And think in terms of both that client and server aspect.
It really comes down to what the customer chooses to have as a platform, right? Some customers choose to do the on-premises solution with Project Professional, Project Standard, well, more Project Professional, Project Server. And then from the cloud perspective, there's Project Online Professional, Project Online Premium, and then we have an add-on called Project Online Essentials. So, customers can move in back and forth. We have customers that do hybrid. We have customers that are solely, like I said, on-premise, and some of them are totally cloud.
There's been a real growth in the cloud, but I think there's also the real value still on premises. So as people start to think of SharePoint Server 2019, they start to unlock the Project Server 2019. What will be those customer benefits if you think about a customer that wants to move to the next version or wants to remain on premises to run some of what they do with Project?
So I think with Project Server 2019, you still will be able to capture the benefits of being on an extensible, scalable, programmable, secure platform. That just continues. That's one of the biggest values that we have. Customers can continue to build workflow. Some of the big benefits right off the bat is that because SharePoint Server is the foundation to Project Server takes advantage of the security that SharePoint offers. So it's just a big win. Some of the other areas that you can use Project Server, it builds on the workflows to help improve processes across the organization. When you use Project Server, you can actually create a team site automatically. And I wanted to kind of say that's not Microsoft Teams, but Team Site that is based in SharePoint. And what that is, it's based upon the type of projects that are being created. And as an example, if I'm in IT and I want to be able to have a complex type of project created, Project Server does create not only just the team site, it will also add in all the documents and other project assets that must be used with that type of project. And so when you really start thinking about it, there's just that continued collaboration between the two products that really makes this a very strong platform to use.
Yeah, when I think of myself as not a project manager, I think of I just write something down on a piece of paper. Don't forget to send such and such to so-and-so. And then you times that by an entire team with documents, with metadata that's tracking against it. And then, of course, timelines and other teams and aligning them all to really get a holistic view. I know it's silly for me to try to describe what is project management, but when I see what project the server and client aspect support, it's highly complex projects with lots of minute details, with a lot of closely related documents and links and people and timelines. Very, very robust product. And to have that on top of SharePoint that you can plumb in, and like you said, even then to further connect that to share out to things like Teams if people are in a hybrid mode, or to connect out to, of course, things like Outlook for reminders and notes. There's a lot of integration points, and I think a lot of that benefit is what you get from SharePoint. But then for us, it's a lot of the benefit of how we're already wired up in the cloud.
Right.
So people can take care of that.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is the whole cruise going out the door. Office 2019, Exchange 2019, SharePoint 2019, and Project 2019.
Yes.
And what's nice is Project and SharePoint go together. So if somebody's playing with SharePoint Server 2019, they should give Project Server 2019 a roll.
Absolutely.
Right. So July 24th, today marks the public preview. So you mentioned a few things. If you were to just say the best way for people to keep up to speed with what's going on with Project, both during the beta, so if people want to go try certain things, you'll be posting and your team will be posting out to it sounds like the tech community?
So we have a tech community, and then we also have our social handles where we have presence on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. You can also go to User Voice where you can provide feedback. And I know that we also, this is more for the Project Online, but we also have the Office 365 public roadmap. But that is more for the cloud.
The other thing just for people to know is when they go to the Microsoft Tech community, there's a specific community for Project, same as there is for SharePoint and all the other workloads and products. The other thing is if you go to docs.microsoft.com, there's also a really nice first interface, and you can dive right into click on Project, and it'll take you to all of the new documentation.
Exactly. Yep.
Great. So, Kippi, if we had one last thought that we want our listeners to walk away with when they think of what is Project Server 2019, what's your elevator pitch?
Well, we have the scalability and performance that we've tweaked. It's something that we've been focused on, and we do focus on that every release, but this one we really have focused on. We have GDPR support. We have improved some accessibility. This is one of the areas that we continually strive to be current with all the standards across the world. And then we also have done some improvements to our reporting. So in a nutshell, that's really what Project Server 2019 is about.
Awesome. Yeah, I think the importance of accessibility, I think we see it throughout the whole company. I know SharePoint team focuses on it a lot. Obviously, a great elevator pitch and, of course, a great way to describe what is Project Server 2019. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
And obviously, good luck with the launch.
Thank you very much. Really happy to be here. Thanks again.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to have all that information so that people can click into it, read, and of course, then engage is the most important thing. Each week, we, of course, get a lot of questions. We see a pattern of a lot of people asking the same question, and across multiple people who focus on different parts of SharePoint or different parts of Office, or with Kippi today, certainly with Project Server. It's great to hear the different questions that they hear, but most importantly, the answer that they give, and hopefully that's helpful. So let's start with Kippi. What is your most frequently asked question? And of course, most interesting, the answer that you always give.
So one of the things that we get questions on is, as an end user, considering how do I think about using the To-Do versus Planner versus Project Online and Project Server? And I love this question.
This is the classic, what to use when?
What do we do? What do we do? So if we think about it sequentially, what you think, we have customers that just do tasks. So I would draw the analogy that if you have a shopping list, you're not going to necessarily assign those items to different people to go get that. You're going to do it yourself. That's a to-do list. However, if you are looking to split up the work or you're looking to group your tasks in another bucket, that's where you want to use Planner. Planner is perfect for that. It does, you can arrange things visually and you can assign tasks. You also get reminders. The great thing is that if you're late, it will remind you that you're late. And where
Lucky
you can,
you.
Yeah, it's great. With Planner, you can actually find it in Microsoft Teams. If you click on the three dots on the left-hand side, you can pull up Planner. If you have Teams, you've got Planner.
So before you get much further, you've got the To-Do app, which is more of a personal app that you would install on your phone. And is something you can sign in with your Office 365 credentials, but pretty personal. Right. Planner comes as a part of Office 365. And like you said, connected to Microsoft Teams and the full Office 365 groups. So we're now laddering up. What's next?
So let's say you have a task that you've been assigned, but you have to wait for someone else to finish their task before you can start your task. There's a relationship there, what we call dependency. And so that's where a product like Project will help you manage that dependency and, for that matter, a variety of different types of dependencies. If you want to look across more than one project, you want to see how they interrelate and how it's impacting the business, then Project Online and Project Server are your tools to use.
Excellent. So it really just matters, you have to ask not what to use when, but what am I trying to accomplish?
Correct.
And if it's a very personal thing, I've got a shopping list and I need to go get some bananas, some Lucky Charms, and some milk. You can see what I'm going to have for breakfast. Then that's probably to do. If I go to a Planner and I'm working with my team, that's probably where I'll organize, but we don't have, as like you said, sequential dependencies or things that rely on other things.
Correct.
And then when I move into Project Server with a couple of versions, obviously, it gets into a lot more complexity and sequential and probably just scale of project. Does that come in?
I would say scalability of projects. So it can go from the simple to the really complex. And so we've got some really big, complex installments of project across many of our enterprise customers.
Awesome. Well, great frequently asked question and, of course, great answer. What is your FAQ this week, Bill?
So obviously, here we are today talking about 2019. The very first question that always comes up is, can I upgrade from earlier versions of SharePoint that I have on premises? And usually that question centers around not, can I upgrade from 2016? It's, can I upgrade from 2013 to 2019? Unfortunately, the answer to that is no. It's a decision that we made in your best interest, actually. We found that it could cause some potential problems that we didn't want to pass along to our customers on premises. But fortunately, it's super easy to get, even from 2013 to 2019. All you need is an interim 2016 farm. You attach your databases, and then you move them over to 2019. It could be something that you do over a weekend. Super simple, converged code base. 2013, 2016, and 2019, all share the same genealogy. We've done a DNA test. We verified that they're all related. So it makes it super simple to upgrade. You're not moving from one very unique version of SharePoint to another very unique version of SharePoint. They all have the same lineage. So the upgrades should be equally as fast and simple as they were for you to get to 2016, if not even better.
And, of course, it will all be documented. So if people are wanting a step-by-step guide, they'll certainly have that in droves. I expect a lot of our MVPs, when we get to public preview now and moving forward into general release, they will have a lot of information to guide people through all different kinds of upgrades. But certainly, great answer. And certainly, as you've done in the past, I think managing that, making sure that it's clear is always something that follows.
Gives me something to beatbox about. Let's do it, Mark.
Upgrade. Which is a great transition to my frequently asked question. And actually, in your realm, there are a lot of questions now that we've opened up this hybrid door for people to think in terms of online and on-premises mapping together. One of the things which you mentioned was that hybrid search. So a common question I get, even as the cloud guy, is when using hybrid search, how much search index storage do I get in SharePoint in Office 365? Since the index is what moves to SharePoint Online, people always ask, how much of the index space do I get? Because those can be pretty sizable. And the calculation, since we continuously provide a lot of storage, part of that storage calculation is how much you get for the index. So for each 1 terabyte of storage space that you get in your tenant with Office 365, you can index 1 million items of on-premises content. And that's per the search index, which is also crawling online content, which you get essentially for free. But if it's crawling content on premises, it's that 1 million items. And as we get a certain amount of storage per user, plus a base tenant storage, you do that calculation of, well, how much storage do you have? And then per each terabyte, you get 1 million items. And if you need to go, there is an upward limit of 20 million items that's set initially. And to increase that number beyond 20 million, you can contact Microsoft support. We'll put a link in the show notes that gives you sort of that definitive answer. And also just know, as we change what the boundaries are of what amount of storage you get when you sign on to Office 365, or as you increase your number of users, if you get more storage, of course, you can then index more items if you're still having a lot of items on premises. So throughout this episode, you heard Kippi and Bill, you also mentioned that people can go and try the bits today. July 24th being the day that people can go for the first time to try the public preview of SharePoint Server 2019. And inside of that, if people want to try out Project Server 2019, we highly encourage both. We'll put links in the show notes for where people can get started to actually download the bits. And the best places to go to actually start with the documentation with whatever you're trying to do, whether it's just checking out the new features, trying out upgrade, establishing hybrid. We'll put that all in the show notes and make sure that we get the best links from both you, Bill, right, and from Kippi. We'll make sure to get that into the show notes.
Hey, and thanks, Mark, and thank you to our guest, Kippi Lundgren from the Project Server team.
We encourage you to send in your comments and questions for the SharePoint team and guests of the show. Send an email to theintrozone@microsoft.com or post a tweet to @SharePoint.
And subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Bill's going to take us out with a little beat. Thank you for listening and considering all that you've heard on this episode. I'm your host, Mark Cashman, here with Bill Baer. This has been the Intro Zone, a show about the SharePoint Intelligent Intranet. Hey, he went there. I just took the lead.
Okay, it's official. We are very much in the final sprint to Election Day. And face it, between debates, polling releases, even court appearances, it can feel exhausting, even impossible to keep up with. I'm Brad Milkey. I'm the host of Start Here, the daily podcast from ABC News. And every morning, my team and I get you caught up on the day's news in a quick, straightforward way that's easy to understand, with just enough context so you can listen, get it, and go on with your day. So, kickstart your morning. Start smart with Start Here and ABC News, because staying informed shouldn't feel overwhelming.